I've always had people to feed. Like, as the mom, they need to eat. And so we develop little systems along the way. And of course, as you get to be a more seasoned mom, you have more systems. Whenever you have some kind of basics in your freezer, it's going to help you when the unexpected happens. Or it's sports season. You got 4 kids doing soccer and you got ballet, and that's in the evenings. Okay. Well, that can quickly be chaotic. I started to make sure I had dinner in the slow cooker in the morning, right? But we don't get to the point to knowing how important that is until it's 4:30 and you're all leaving and you're grabbing the bread and peanut butter and trying to make it out to the soccer field.
My name is Lisa, mother of 8 and creator of the blog and YouTube channel Farmhouse on Boone. On this podcast, I like to talk about simplifying your life so you can live out your priorities. I help you learn how to cook from scratch and decorate on a budget through this podcast and my courses, Simple Sourdough and the Simple Sewing series. I also help people reach their goals from home through my business course, YouTube Success Academy. I will leave links to these resources in the show notes and description box below. Now let's get into the show. Welcome back to the Simple Farmhouse Life podcast. Today, we are having on Jamerrill from Large Family Table. She inspires so many of us with her tips for filling your freezer, planning ahead so that you have something to eat no matter what comes your way. She's a large family mama, but plenty of families that are smaller in size learn from her techniques and her wisdom. Without further ado, let's jump into the interview. Jamerrill, welcome back. When was the last time you were on this show? I cannot remember. I know you were on. I just can't remember when it was.
I'm not sure. I think this is my 3rd time.
Yes.
4th time. I have to do it by pregnancies and babies and life situations.
Yes.
Pretty solid. This is my 3rd time.
Okay. Yep.
I want to say my first time, like 2019 or 2020-ish.
Yeah. Well, I started the podcast in early 2020, and I do think you were one of my first guests. So I think that would be accurate. Yes. Not almost. It's been 5 years now that we've had the podcast. And I've had you on several times because you, like me, have a large family. Right. That means that you are in the kitchen all the time. There's always something to prep, something to make. I always say, like, you can't make too much food. Right. My sister has 1 child and 1 husband.
Oh, it's prep.
And she said, well, I get in a position where I actually like make too much or buy too much and it goes bad. I'm like, that is a different strategy. I'm not very familiar with that, but I could see that happening. I just forgot about that phase of life, and it's not fresh in my brain. So we're going to talk about that. Freezer meals, canning, meal prep. You are the queen of all things large batch cooking, but also women who don't have a large family. I think you offer a lot of practical tips on how to make that job easier so that maybe you don't feel like you're in the kitchen all the time, or at least that it's doable. So for those who don't know you, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Let's go. Let's see here. My name is Jamerrill. I'm a mom of 9. My kids are ages 2 through 24. Also, since 2023, who knew this was on my bingo card, but I'm also a single mom of 9. So, hey, let's have a lot of kids and have all these adventures. So women in your audience who have been raising children and homeschooling for decades, maybe running businesses, maybe not. And then life just ends up being full of surprises. I know that there's a percentage in both of our audiences because we're all living this human experience that can relate. So I have not been able to consistently live a happy homemaker, homesteading, homeschooling life where I can, raise my cooney pigs and raise my meat birds to butcher and read stories in the sunshine.
Happily ever after.
A whole lot of real life. Lot of real life. So I have been sharing on YouTube for over 10 years now. And I have my over 100 million views over there, which I've created a course in reference to that I share about. And I was a full-time blogger before that. So I've been in the business for about 14 years now.
Yeah.
First being a full-time blogger, then seeing something sparkly on YouTube and going all in there. So I'm an entrepreneur mom also. Yeah. But I can be found everywhere, Jamerrill Stewart. And my blog that has all my big batch, large family style recipes is largefamilytable.com.
Yeah. And you have the meal packs where if
Yeah, I have
someone's
freezer cooking guides. So that's at shop.largefamilytable.com. So my biggest YouTube videos early on started to be where I was just sharing my freezer cooking with a whole bunch of kids, towel on my head, baby on my back, 10 years ago. And those videos got the most views. And as women entrepreneurs, we always look for our angles on what our audience is telling us that they want from us. And for me, my spidey sense tingled. Okay, everybody loves watching me do big batch freezer cooking. They want the recipes. I started putting the recipes on my blog, and then I started developing big batch freezer cooking days and making. We've rebranded it. They used to be called large family freezer meal packs, and now they're big batch freezer cooking guides, because not only large families use them. I have group homes that have purchased them, that use them. I have women who've contacted me who've said they've used the recipes for veterans dinners, for all kinds of events. There was one, it was a teen group home for moms, so teenagers who had their children with them all living in a home together. And they've used the big batch cooking guides as like a cooking curriculum every month. So the moms get together, make the meals, and feed themselves and their children with them for their dinners for the month. So I have them for breakfast, lunch, dinners, snacks. And my goodness, I think I have 24 or 25 of those now.
Yeah, that's quite the collection.
40 meals, but there's, in most of them, there's a smallish big batch edition. So if someone doesn't want to fill their freezer with 40 meals, they could do sensible, like 10 to 15.
Right. Yeah.
And I've heard from empty nesters that use them, like instead of 9x13 pans, they'll do them in 8x8s and just get more meals. But that's some of the stuff we got going on.
Well, yeah. And then you also have a lot of budget shopping and grocery type of content. Luke and I were watching you the other night shop at, Sharp Shopper. I'm like, I can't say this.
Made them world famous.
Yes.
It's a phenomenal store. And like, they'll have 25-pound bags of oats it used to be $16. It's 20 something now, but they'll have the big bulk bags, and they'll have Bob Red Mill products, and like provolone, the big logs of it I like to get, and we'll slice them down. But then they also have items like from big name grocery stores, when I first got started online 14 years ago, I had a grocery budget of $250 to $350 a month for my then family of 7.
Wow.
And so I did that by, of course I had a garden and I was canning, but I didn't have all the resources like we have on the internet now. So I was really like hacking my way through it. If I could have found like Jessica from Three Rivers Homestead 14 years ago with a 2-page PDF guide on, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was just gardening as a hobby and learning to can what I could. But out of that $250 to $350 a month, I took my first $100, because like those pennies were precious. $100 went to Sharp Shopper, and I got what I could. Now, by that point, I was making homemade yogurt in my slow cooker and things like that. But I never knew what deals they would have, and I'd be able to stock up on things. And even things like we can make homemade bagels now, but back then I didn't know how to make homemade bagels. Right. And I could get name brand bagels, 2 bags. They were 2 for $1. So I could get 12 bagels for $1. And so I could spend $10 and stock up on 20 bags of whole wheat bagels. It just made sense.
Right.
So, and then I would take my next $150 or so to Walmart. And then there was like a Russian kind of little grocery store, but they would have produce deals. And I lived near orchards and stuff. So sometimes, when peaches were in season and I was freezing. And from a decade before that, when I was also working weekends as a full-time charge nurse, I learned to do like one for now, one for later type freezer meals, very simple stuff there, and got into batch cooking that way. So,
yeah. So in your motherhood journey, when you had, say, like 6 kids, so they're all fairly little, not
like 12 and under, 10
genuine
and under.
help. Yeah. I mean, well, they can be helpful, but like they can't like take over the whole kitchen and feed the whole family.
Right.
I'm assuming you did large batch days, and then that made the rest of your week flow smoothly.
How I got into that is when I would do that precious little grocery shopping for that very small amount, I would then, like the next day, I would cook all of my meat for the month. So it might be like 15 pounds of ground beef and I would cook that. I bought a lot of chicken leg quarters. I think they were like 67 cents a pound back then. And so I would get several bags of those and I would boil that chicken in stock pots, peel the meat from the bone. So I'd have all my shredded chicken for the month. And then I would have all of that broth also. Now that was factory chicken, but it was still chicken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And it
right.
wasn't, yeah. So that's how I would kind of get my meal prep going for the month. I wasn't necessarily doing like a true once a month cooking day yet, but I would get those components, like sometimes even my rice for the month and those kind of things. And I had a meal plan where everything that I cooked was at least big batch. I would freeze extra portions, but again, I wasn't hyper focused on the freezing yet, but like I would just plan to do chili, but I would do enough that we could have it in different ways for 2 or 3 days.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Stock the freezer, pull out your options. That's something I've never been great about. And I remember last time you were on the podcast, you were saying, well, just always make, if nothing else, always make double of what you need. And then you'll have that for another meal. And it does happen with some things, like, depending on, like if I'm making a roast, especially now with, the number of kids we have, I'll always make 2 roasts at the same time.
Yes.
And then we have that shredded meat throughout the week. I mean, sometimes we'll eat quite a bit of that. Depends on how much roast is on each, like what cut.
You can do a whole roast and yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But I haven't got good about if I'm making something like, let's just say a lasagna, making 2 of those just deliberately to have leftovers. It ends up that I make a large amount and we do have some leftovers, but never like, okay, I am deliberately making double right now for the leftovers. But
I always go back to like our very basic recipes. And even the other day I was saying to a teenager, because we just had a medical crisis. I mean, always has to be something. And I was in and out. I was the bedside patient advocate for like 15 straight days. Now I do have teenagers and young adults at home and I am their mama. So like they know how to work those sheet pans,
right.
like meals and stuff and how to work things to the freezer. And the little times I did come home for like 4 hours here or 30 minutes there, I would pull things from the freezer. Like I had 2 gallons of sausage gravy that I froze a couple weeks ago. And so one of the times I came home, I just pulled that from the freezer and put it in the refrigerator. And about 2 days later, I gave one of my young adults directions to just put that in the slow cooker. And I told them to just do toast. You all can do gravy over toast. They ended up doing sheet pan eggs and someone made 4 dozen biscuits. So it all worked out. But the base of that, like, sure, they could have done all the cooking, but how nice to have 2-gallon bags of gravy.
Well, and just the idea presented to you, because a lot of times that's the big thing. Like, yes, we can make biscuits and gravy, but here, this is the idea. We're going to have biscuits and gravy, to make eggs with that. I think that's probably the biggest benefit, right?
Oh, that was the other thing that was in my brain floating around. So one of my teenagers the other day, we just noted, we haven't had tacos in a while. Like we'll get on kicks. We'll have years where we do like Taco Tuesday, and then we might have like 2 years and no tacos.
Yep,
I mean,
we do the same thing.
I'm pushing 50. So, I've got all kinds of food experiences. And so I was like, okay, we need to do tacos maybe this week or next. But when we do, I will do a massive amount of our taco meat so that I'm looking at my stock pots. Like I'll try to do like my 30-quart stock pot equivalent of taco meat. And then that will give us enough to have for a couple days of taco varieties. Then we should be able to get several gallon freezer bags of the taco meat. And that way, so like when I cook and meal prep, I never think of it in terms of we're going to eat the rest of this taco meat this month. We might not get that taco meat back out for 12 weeks or for even 6 months sometimes. Just with the medical emergency we just had, there was fried rice from August 2024 and there was sloppy joes from December. And so middle of March, those were some of the items that got pulled out and used.
Yeah, that's such a nice, like having an event like that pops up out of nowhere, but being able to say, hey, there's something in the freezer and you didn't really even know at the time what you were even making it for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I've lived this life long enough with enough humans. Like right now, I only have 10 people at my house. And, some people are so funny. They're like, oh, it's 10 people, like as if that's so much. And the other day I just Googled, like, what's the average Thanksgiving size in America? And the average Thanksgiving size, people are serving 9 to 10 people. Well, that's for one meal.
Every day, 3 times a day.
You and I do Thanksgiving 3 times a day plus snacks. So 90 Thanksgiving meals a month.
Yes.
And then sometimes you have people over, you know?
Yeah,
it
is a lot. It's a lot. And I have a lot of little kids still. And so even like feeding them is kind of hard because you got to make all of their plates too. You know, you're kind of like trying to get everybody like, how many plates do I make again? We're counting them. We're counting forks, counting plates. I was like, wait, the baby doesn't need a plate. So that means we need this many plates, you know? Yeah.
It's a whole new thing. I've gotten to the point now where, cause let's see, I have a preschooler and then I have 2 elementary boys. They're the 7-year-old's almost 8. You know, we got to get those birthdays. And then 10-year-old. And then I have 4 that are teens, basically 12 through 18. And then I have another young adult that still lives at home doing their grown-up things, and my mom and I. So I've gotten to the point for a lot of meals, I pretty much set out like a buffet.
Okay.
Like the other night, it was a meatloaf from the freezer. Another recipe I have for unstuffed pepper casserole. But I did a dairy-free version. I know some of the questions that we have are about switching things up to be gluten-free and dairy-free.
Yes.
So I had already tweaked that one to be dairy-free when I got it in the freezer. And then what else did we do? I think I did some sweet potatoes in the slow cooker. And then I usually set out like some kind of fruit. So I will generally have like 1 to 2 type main course options.
Okay.
And as I say, sometimes I do that. Other times it'll be tacos, but there's a variety of ways to eat it.
Yeah.
But if I have them in the freezer, okay, 2 different casserole options. And then, but both were gluten-free and dairy-free from the get-go. And then we have some kind of heated vegetable. I think I also did steamed broccoli with that. So all the options are healthy.
Right. And they can just choose.
There's a lot of different, and then you just kind of choose your own adventure. So some of my kids like just had meatloaf and ketchup.
Right.
And then some had a little bit of everything. I had a little bit of everything. And then some might have like one vegetable.
Yeah.
One piece of loaf or
That's
whatever.
typically how we handle leftovers. Like we will throughout the week make things. And then it's like, I got little bits of lots of things. And so I put them all in the oven, set them all on the table. And then people just take like, we got like 1 slice of pizza, 1/4 of a meatloaf, you know, just like all of this random stuff. Doesn't have to go together at all. Do you do that too with leftovers, or how do you handle leftovers?
I do. And actually we're going to have leftovers tonight. So we ended up eating out twice yesterday, just with a church thing and another event. And so that meal I just said for Saturday, parts of it is still in the refrigerator. So I will pull all that out again. And then also I need to do my April grocery shopping. So I will scrounge around, and like, it's a good time to see what else we have. You know, half a pack of blueberries.
Right.
I don't know what their adventures. And yeah.
So what's your rule of thumb in storing things in the refrigerator? So once, say it was you made it was in the freezer, you pull it out, it's thawed out. How long or how many times will you reheat it? How long will it stay in there? Do you have some like rules?
Well, so we have enough people that things are going to be eaten.
Yeah.
Like whatever's left today will be eaten. So I don't deal with a lot of, this has been in here, 4 days. Should I throw it out or not?
Okay.
Of course, there's the sniff test. Of course, there's food safety and food handling. But I just don't generally have an issue with that because we do still roll through things.
Well, yes, and we do too, but still you have to have sort of a flow to where you're not getting out more food. And at some point you're saying, okay, we should eat everything that's in this refrigerator.
And that's why, like tonight, I'm not, like I have meat that I had set out that's defrosted, but it's in the refrigerator. And I said to one of my teens this morning, we're not doing that tonight. We're going to finish Saturday's, what's left over from Saturday tonight on Monday, because yesterday other people fed us.
Right.
But normally that food would have been finished yesterday.
Okay. Yeah. Taking a quick break to tell you about today's podcast sponsor, Azure Standard. Azure Standard is a wonderful way to get items like bulk grains, which I talk about all the time on here, my hard white wheat berries, my soft white wheat berries, in your home so that you can start making fresh milled bread. Also things like raw cheddar cheese or raw organic cheddar cheese I can pick up in bulk for a great price from Azure Standard. I stock up on seasonal produce because there's always an excellent deal on that. I just scan through on the website to find what is currently on sale, as well as high quality grass-fed butter. There are just a whole list of things that I stock my pantry, fridge, and freezer with from Azure Standard. Now, Azure Standard works kind of like a co-op model. So you and several people in your community pool and order together. It comes on a big truck and everybody gathers around, picks up all of their orders so that you can take advantage of that great pricing with other like-minded individuals in your community. Now, very likely there's already a drop location established near you. If there isn't, you can start one up. But where I live, there are several options to choose from within a 30-minute driving radius. So we can always have access to great products from Azure Standard. Now, Azure Standard is offering Simple Farmhouse Life listeners 15% off your first order of $100 or more to a drop location near you with my code SIMPLE15. So head to Azure Standard, AZURE Standard.com, use the code SIMPLE15 and see what you can find on there. Maybe there's some things that you've always wanted to use in your kitchen, but you don't know where to get it locally. You have to drive maybe to the city and there it's exorbitantly expensive. See if you can't find something on Azure Standard that meets your quality standards, maybe a unique ingredient, whatever the case may be, I'm sure you will find it there. Thanks again, Azure Standard, for sponsoring this episode. Yeah, I kind of gauge it by like how full the refrigerator is. Like, okay, we need space. So tonight we're not making any new food. We're just going to eat everything that's in here. Now you have a large fridge, and in my new house, we're going to have a large fridge, which I love because we run out of fridge space all the time, especially with getting raw milk. We get 8 gallons a week. It's full. Like I can't fit 2 meals in my current refrigerator.
So I have a large fridge, and I have other refrigerators and freezers in my basement. Again, because I've collected them. Like I have the fridge from my first house from like, what year was that even? Like 1997. you know, I bought that refrigerator new for that house and it's still going. Okay. So that was always my backup refrigerator at my farmhouse because I also back then with that small grocery budget implemented once a month grocery shopping. And so at that time, we only went through 15 gallons of milk a month. And so I bought all 15 gallons up front.
Wow. And then the refrigeration needs.
I put 7 gallons in my half freezer on that second fridge. And then the other 8 gallons or so was out. You know, I put a couple in my kitchen refrigerator, a couple in my back, but I lived rural with, you know, a lot of little kids and a very small budget. And it was easier for me to just have what I need for the month.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I am just curious, what size is your current fridge in your kitchen, your Mega Mama kitchen?
47.
Okay. So I'm getting I'm getting a smaller one than that, but it still is going to feel so massive.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's a SABA, maybe you say it, say that brand. And another friend of mine who has 11 kids, I believe they got this same fridge like in 2020, 21-ish.
Yeah.
And so I went off her recommendation and it's been good to us. And then I have a 60-inch gas stove, which has been good to me.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And you've got the setup now.
I do for this season.
Yes. So, yes.
Yeah. I could do it all again. Like when we travel, I use regular size. Like I had a regular size kitchen until 2022. So
yes, it can all definitely be done. I'm currently in a very small kitchen. It's not a small fridge. It's an average size fridge. But I think for refrigerators that split the fridge and the freezer down the middle, I want like 3/4 of that to be fridge and just a little bit to be freezer because I keep all of my stuff that needs to be in the freezer outside. And so got this tiny little, like, that's just a bad design. And then I have I
never liked that one.
Yeah, I know. I didn't know how much I didn't like it till just recently.
You have to live out of it.
Yeah, I haven't. I'm like, how do you fit anything in this thing, especially for a large family? But yeah, I'm operating out of, a very small kitchen, average size fridge, average size oven. and it's still totally doable. Like I'm very much looking forward to having a better setup, but
Sure. You can do
you
it.
can do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I might realistically be moving in the future. And so as I, look on Zillow and look at options, I'm like, the biggest thing I would do is have some cabinets blown out and have the same stove put in. Like I love the stove so much. Yeah.
How many burners is it?
It's like a love fest with my stove. So we're 8 burners plus an unnecessary flat griddle space.
Okay.
And then it's like an oversized oven and then a regular sized oven.
Okay.
And the ovens are electric, not gas, because when I got into researching the stoves, I just heard so many stories about trouble with the heating elements in the gas stoves.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so right now I'm in an average size, I think it's Frigidaire oven, like whatever the standard width is. That's what I have.
Right.
And that is major because in my last house, I had the vintage oven, which was fabulous, but the oven is this wide. So it looks like people think it's 2 ovens because it's 2 doors. But on most models, if you go searching around, because this is the reason why I'm probably not doing a vintage in my new house, which I love it. The look, It's beautiful. But every time I find one online, you open it up and one side's an oven, one side storage. That's what it was in my last house. And I can only bake 1 loaf of cast iron Dutch oven bread at a time. And in my new oven, I can do 2. And it took me so long to realize that. So I was like doing one at a time. And I'm like, wait, 2 Dutch ovens fit in this oven, like at the same time. And yeah.
When I do, I love to do your, what is it? It's your artisan beginner easy sourdough.
Yes.
Ever since you gave me that starter, I just have like I call it a farmhouse on Boone love fest, And so I do that recipe again and again, and I will get 3 Dutch ovens going at a time.
Yeah.
1 in my regular size one, and then 2 more, and
2 in the oversized. Yeah. To be able to do 2 at once, because the recipe makes 2 at once. And so I'm used to when you're baking bread, it's like, leave the oven on for 2 hours at least, maybe 3, because you got to preheat it, and then 2 more hours. And then it recently occurred to me that I could actually fit these both in at the exact same time. So it just cuts it down significantly.
Yeah,
so
it's glorious.
That's why vintage probably won't be what we do in the new house. Not at all that it can't be done. Because again, I made it work. I baked like every bread from scratch. We just always had the oven going. You're just always putting stuff in there. It works.
Yeah.
But
that's right. It's just whatever system you get used to in your kitchen. Like I was watching we did a compilation video of some of my first freezer cooking from eons ago. And in my last house kitchen, which was a super upgrade, because my farmhouse, I had no dishwasher. I was very limited on everything. And so then my next kitchen, I had a dishwasher, and I actually had a little counter space and had a decent size oven. In my last house, though, even though I had all that space, as I kept doing my big batch cooking, this is before I had my 30 quart size mega mama bowls, as I call them. I stirred a lot in big stock pots and stuff. And so during the big cooking times, I just set stools around my kitchen, and I would have, different stools, different, just whole massive system.
Right. For what you have.
Chairs. Like the countertops were full, the stove was full. And so it would have been nice if I would have had like a little pop-up camping type table or something to add another layer in the kitchen. But I just used stools, and it worked fine. And I never spilled anything, and it all worked out.
Okay. So selfishly, since we're building a house right now, I want to know what's like the biggest efficiency thing, like tips that you have in your kitchen. I know most people just like probably won't apply, but if you have, you're looking for a house or you're going to build a house, what would you say about that?
I have 2 dishwashers, and people are still like, you always have dishes in your sink. I mean, I have a lot of people, and I basically cook for work, so we have,
I understand,
family dishes, and then we have additional content, full-time food content creator dishes. So I did 2 big sinks, so that I would always have like my prep sink. And then we had a sink for the 10 people, the 57 children, I like to say, that live here. And then we have 2 dishwashers, and that has been very nice. It's just always a lot of dishes, and we use paper plates. Can't help it. Okay. It's a lot of dishes any way it goes. And what else efficiency wise? I don't know, because efficiency means that helps you get things done quicker. I guess the sinks just felt like a necessity. And then I love the island, 12 foot by 6 foot island is
Yes.
just amazing.
Yeah. That having a work prep space in the middle of your kitchen. So I had that in my last house, and it changed the game on having like sort of a triangle instead of all just on this one spot. We do in our current kitchen run out of places to set things because my daughter will be baking something, I'll be making something, and we're like, we don't even know where to put things at that point. Again, it works, but it's not ideal.
Yeah. So some kind of space like that.
Yeah. So we, in our last farmhouse, did not have a dishwasher. I actually opted for the storage space for my whole grains instead. And then in this current house that we live in, we have I want to say 24-inch, like I think a standard dishwasher. No, that's not right. It's the standard one's 24. So it's a lot smaller than that, whatever that is, maybe half. And it taught me a few things about dishwashers because I feel like the problem with the dishwasher is it always has in it the thing that I need, dirty. And what I learned, because I have a small dishwasher, so I'm not worried about running it when it's not like I can run it 3 times a day, is that you have to run it instantly. Like you can't wait until you have enough dishes in it. Is that what you find? Because I'm like, that I've been doing dishwashers all wrong. You got to load it as fast as you can. If you rinse, because that's another thing, is I thought you had to rinse. And so if you rinse, then I've already spent the amount of time that I usually spend washing dishes. So I'm like, okay, if it can get it clean without me doing literally anything, and I run it instantly, you can't wait until lunch and you can't wait until dinner, then I don't find the problem of, the thing I want is in the dishwasher, and it's actually quite convenient. Now I'm curious with you having 2, how often you run them, because with the one small one, it works out really nice to run it 3 times a day.
Yeah. We might, I think we have days now, if I'm not doing a big cooking project, where we will run them once. So if I only had one, it would be run twice. If I'm doing a big project, both of them could go 2 to 3 times. It just depends
on what the day is.
On what I'm doing. And like I hand wash my 30-quart bowls, and I did the whole testing. This is like a big internet conversation, so buckle up. Like everyone's going to write about this. I got involved in the conversation years ago because I had like a very small kitchen in this house, and I operated, like, even Becky from Maker Homestead came to visit me. And the first thing she said when she came into my original kitchen is, my goodness, this is even smaller than it looks like on YouTube. It was just like the original.
Well, and you can't tell scale on YouTube.
Yeah.
That is something that people cannot tell at all. And I've noticed it going to other people's houses too.
Yeah.
So anyways, back to that.
So anyway, in that original little baby kitchen with the however old, couple decades old dishwasher, I started trying to test, because another friend of mine who I think has 11 kids as well, all us large family moms become friends. They don't rinse their dishes. And there's like a tab. I'm not read up on this, but there's like a special tab you're supposed to get to put in your dishwasher that helps with it.
Okay.
Fill in the blank. And I read some online theory on it. I saw Crystal Payne from Money Saving Mom a few years ago talking about it. Somehow these people, and you are going to hear from all of them, Lisa, don't rinse their dishes, and they load their dishwashers and it all comes out. Like they would only scrape off the chunks. I tried that with my old dishwasher and my new ones, and it does not work for me.
Okay.
With special tabs, I've tried like only just, scrape off the chunk of cheese or whatever and get it in there and no rinsing. And the internet will just blame me. I'm the only one who fails at this.
Okay. Well, my argument is, if I'm rinsing it, we have very few dishes. We don't keep a huge stock. So we rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. If it's in the dishwasher, we don't have it. We don't even have enough plates. Like we have to have it. And so if I'm just rinsing it, or if I'm already rinsing it, I don't see the time savings.
Yeah. Well, and at my farmhouse for 10 years, we hand washed, and there was just always a strainer with dishes on the counter.
Well, and that's true. That's one thing about dishwashers.
That's the trade-off. So
it is the trade-off.
A strainer that you can close.
That's true.
So much that I can't micromanage. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, So the dishwasher I have currently, it does work if I don't. Now I will say if somebody like leaves their, okay, well here's the thing. What if it's because you only wash once a day? Because I'm like this, the food is done. Like the kid eats it 5 minutes. That thing's run. Maybe not five, but I mean within 10 minutes, it's running. And so maybe it's not stuck. Is maybe a theory.
Maybe. I mean, whatever works. I'm just saying different conversations that you'll hear.
Yeah, I know. Well, I've been in the anti-dishwasher camp for so long, and people are like, "You're going to use a dishwasher in that new house?" And I'm like, here's the thing. I'm not anti-dishwasher because I think that it's like better to not use a dishwasher. Like, I think people mistake that, you know how the internet
Well,
is.
it sounds like you have a good minimalist system with it. You only have the dishes you need.
Yes. And so as long as you press that button right away, it's actually really great. And like you said, it keeps the dishes off the counter. And in my new house, my new house, not the in-between house, I can't have the sink with the drain boards, which is so unfortunate, but we have to raise the windows if we have the high back sink. And so not having a drain board to put a dish drainer means you're really not set up to not have a dishwasher too. So, yeah, a little off topic, but
that's fine. No, people like to hear about dishes and dishwashers and
efficiency.
That's right.
Many years ago, when I was pregnant with my 5th child, I decided to add YouTube to my internet business to diversify and open up a whole world of opportunities. Many things have changed about YouTube since that day. A lot of things, honestly, have remained the same, but I love to educate students on how to create an income from home through YouTube with my YouTube Success Masterclass, which you can find over at bit.ly/farmhouse YouTube masterclass, bit.ly/farmhouse YouTube masterclass, all lowercase. There I share the mistakes that I made when I first got started, how you can achieve success faster, and how to earn a diverse and stable income from the YouTube platform. So if you are interested in using video to reach a wider audience for a business you already have, or you're just curious about what it might look like to incorporate YouTube into your life as a homemaker or a stay-at-home mom, go ahead and check out that free masterclass that I put together for you.
That's right.
We had several audience questions in many different categories. And one is, how do you stay motivated to do all the meal prep? And before Jamerrill answers, I mean, this is also your job, but before it was your job, you had to stay motivated too.
I just started filming it. And then because I was already an online businesswoman, I was like, okay. And also, like, running a business and also being present for our children and being a work at home mom and all of that. It's like, how can I multitask these things that I'm doing? So I've created a business around it. But I was doing, I had no one watching when I was out there in my garden. The first time I butchered chickens barefoot and pregnant, I Googled how to butcher a chicken the easy way. I didn't have any online content creation, but that would have been some great footage. That was 2011. Yes. And, when I was in that $250 to $350 grocery budget, I didn't have anybody watching, but I was doing it. Like I lived it for, probably 15 years or more before I started sharing aspects of it. And now it's just, if I only had a $250 or $350 grocery budget, I know so much as an entrepreneurial woman that I would share that budget, and then I would be profitable teaching people how to do it.
Right.
And then in turn, I would have a bigger grocery budget.
Well, so, okay. And I'm with you. I did all this stuff for a decade before I shared it on the internet.
Yeah.
How did you stay, or, obviously now you're in the flow. It's just something you do. So the motivation probably isn't as much of an issue, but in the beginning, when it was all brand new and you were trying to get into this groove, stay motivated to do that?
How I got started was when I worked as a nurse. And so I worked 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. as a charge nurse. And I was leaving, 3 little kids with another adult. And I needed to prep food for the weekend.
Right.
So that motivated me. I've always had people to feed. Like, as the mom, they need to eat. And so we develop little systems along the way. And of course, as you get to be a more seasoned mom, you have more systems in place. So if I will be really motivated if there's nothing prepped. Like I am in a season living in active crisis almost 2 years in. And there's so many things that come up or affect my nervous system in another way. And I didn't know how this was going to feel or what I was going to have to process or what I was going to have to advocate for. And so as much as freezer meals and having food prepped in advance have always helped me, they have definitely helped me so much now. And I've also had weeks and seasons where, just getting the two lasagnas at Costco and the already done rotisserie chicken and the chicken nuggets. I don't care, because crisis, you still have to eat.
Right.
So if you can take a step back from what's my life like when I'm in crisis and know that whenever you have some kind of basics in your freezer, it's going to help you when the unexpected happens. Or it's sports season. We can say this on a nice, happy homemaker level, haha, right? Like it's sports season. You got 4 kids doing soccer. You got, and you got ballet, and that's in the evenings. Okay. Well, that can quickly be chaotic. And so how I manage sports seasons and lots of activities before is I started to make sure I had dinner in the slow cooker in the morning, right? But we don't get to the point to knowing how important that is until it's 4:30 and you're all leaving and you're grabbing the bread and peanut butter and trying to make it out to the soccer field. And you're wondering, okay, we either eat really early or we eat really late. And even sports season can turn into a chaotic mess.
Yes.
And so you learn trial by fire, right? That, okay, I best figure out something, because we're gone 4 nights a week and I might want to rest one evening.
Yeah. And you were talking about like putting the food in the crock pot in the morning.
Right.
One thing that always amazes me is how little effort there is between being really prepared and then being rushed out the door. And I have seasons where you kind of forget that. And so you jump out of the float. It's like, oh no, we have this thing going on and we have no food. And all it really took was you doing like a little something a little bit earlier on, whether that was thawing out meat, just putting something in the crock pot.
Even having ground beef in the freezer that's already cooked, or ground beef. I know we have some questions about canning. If you have your ground beef canned, taking a day and canning whatever level of ground beef that you have, it's shelf stable. And then all you need to do is dump that into your spaghetti sauce, or for your taco meat, or for your sloppy joes. These again are my little go-to
quick things,
because we are just a few days out of the medical emergency. So it's just like, okay, we always go back to our roots.
Our canned food.
That's right.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we confuse not being prepared, lack of preparedness, with massive effort. And we're like, well, I'll just do this. This is the easier thing. And sometimes it literally takes more time, more effort to do the easier thing that really just a tiny bit of preparation would have made it no big deal. Like it actually, a lot of this, I think we picture, especially if it's something we're new to, that you're standing in the kitchen all day long. And on those like batch cooking days, that very much can be the case.
I know people see like the highlight reel. They'll see me, canning 75 pounds of ground beef or processing 380 pounds.
But what about all those random days where you're throwing that in the pot,
But there's weeks I don't cook at all. Like there's whole weeks,
you're throwing that canned stuff.
I'm living off of that, And so that's what reminds me it's so good. Keep going. And I haven't done any kind of batch cooking in probably 3.5 weeks now. And tomorrow I plan to do a batch cooking day where I'm going to do a bunch of homemade pizzas for the freezer, and also pizza dough. We'll do sourdough pizza dough. I'll do traditional, just all of it. I like to freeze the dough, but I also like to have like pizzas ready.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, my goodness, I'll do that. And then I probably won't do something like that for months.
Right.
And I did a bunch of, I did like 280 breakfast sandwiches, and I did, homemade sourdough bagels, Farmhouse on Boone Credit, and English muffins, and traditional biscuits and all of that. And we'll be eating those. Well, they ate a lot of them during the medical emergency, and I have some different in my fridge now. And I don't need to do big batch breakfast freezer meals even every month.
Right.
I did that once every 12 weeks. That gives us a base.
Mm-hmm. So the sandwiches, how are you packaging them up, and then how are you preparing them? Because I used to do this, and I love the idea because every morning it's a new thing. Like, what are you going to make for breakfast? And if you just had some sandwiches, just people to grab,
That's right. So I do sheet pan eggs usually. I'll do like a sheet pan omelet or whatever. So I do several sheet pans of eggs. And then I have all my bread products that maybe I've made homemade or maybe I've bought from Walmart. It really depends on
Right.
what's on my bingo card at that time, but it doesn't matter because I'm getting stuff in the freezer. And but this last time, definitely 3/4 of everything was homemade. And then I'll have some kind of meat, like pre-cooked sausage patties, or I'll batch cook a bunch of bacon in the oven. And then I'll get like my 12-pound log of provolone from Sharp Shopper, slice down our cheese. And so I just keep assembling. And as I run out of ingredients, we might get to the end and have some sourdough English muffins with some sheet pan omelet on it.
Right.
And so I just, I use my teenage army to then individually wrap things in plastic wrap. And then we put them we get as many as we can in gallon bags, and they go in the freezer. And so then my family's trained to, whenever we don't have any in our upstairs refrigerator, they'll bring maybe 2 or 3 gallon bags up. And then over the next several days, I'll have kids that might eat them for lunch, or I might have kids that eat them obviously for breakfast.
Just something healthy to grab.
I might have a teenage boy in the afternoon walk by. They're like 6'2", and there might be like bagel sandwiches, and hey, look, I meal prepped,
Yeah. So do you like put them in the toaster oven or?
Oh, I'm sorry. So many times they unwrap them.
Okay.
And you can also, like, we go through things, then we have times we go through things quickly. I've had times where I've just like done a layer of parchment paper.
Right.
But sandwiches, because you have the different components. So anyway, unwrap them and they're defrosted. So then they just put them in the microwave for 1.5 to 2 minutes. It's similar to, if you go to 7-Eleven and you get a biscuit, reality, or you get a burrito, and then there's just like the little crusty microwave at 7-Eleven, and that's what people do. They reheat it. So it's a homemade version of a quick grab and go breakfast.
Yes. Yeah, when I used to do this, and I haven't done it in so long. Like and my husband's still like, remember when you used to make me all those English muffin sandwiches and you had them in the freezer? I'm like, yeah, I do. I used to do that. But we had a toaster oven that just sat on our counter, and I think he had to put it in there for not that long. Like, it was just the perfect little oven for heating up the sandwiches. So either one works.
And I have, I also go back to, and thankfully I just did this like 6 weeks ago, way back in the day, I used to like freeze peanut butter and jelly. And everybody's like, why would you freeze peanut butter and jelly? Well, listen, if you're going to homeschool group with a gaggle of children and you need to get out the door, and then, yes, for me in my life, if I can the night before take a dozen frozen peanut butter jellies out, put them in the refrigerator, and the next morning is just a matter of throwing, fruit, crackers, whatever other things, and our sandwiches, I made them one day, and we will use those sandwiches over several weeks as needed. And so I will also do that with just bread and cheese. And so I will do sheet pan grilled cheese. And again, it doesn't take much time to put cheese on bread, but if you're doing 12 of them, or 24, it all adds up.
Well, and when you're running out of the house last minute, like, you still have to have something. And assembling a bunch of sandwiches actually does take a lot of time. I always say that, like, the easy option, people talk about, sandwiches, things like that. That actually takes, for my large family, more time than throwing a roast in the Instant Pot with some potatoes and carrots. Like that, assembling all those sandwiches, yes, it's easy. Everybody knows how to do it, but it actually does take more time.
Yeah. And I love, I've got one of those goose pots. And so I'll put whatever kind of root vegetables on the bottom, and then like 2 farm raised chickens, and put the lid on it. And look, that meal's going to be done. And they go through 2 chickens for one dinner. So anyway, meat volume.
Yeah, I know.
So I saw my 10-year-old the other day. He'll take one of those cheese sandwiches he take this is not time savings, but he'll take the cheese off. He puts the bread in the toaster. He puts the cheese back on. Then he puts it in the microwave for 20 seconds. And that's his he's got his system.
He has his method.
10-year-old, yeah, if we're not doing 24, if he just wants one.
I could totally see my son like having a whole system like that because he has his own ways of wanting to have things. Like I don't want to, you know, I can't make his plate. Not that I would, but like he's got his own ways that he wants it.
Have at it, kid. That's when people ask me, what do you do if your kids don't want to eat what you make?
Yes.
They can make their own dinner. They can make a sandwich. You know, they can. That's why I usually have some options. And obviously as a mom, like, you know what most people like.
Right.
And so, but sometimes I will have someone make a meat and mayonnaise sandwich. That's what they call it.
Meat and mayo.
Meat and mayo.
Well, and I love things that you can add as your taste. Like we'll cut up some avocados, we'll cut up some jalapenos, we'll cut up some herbs. And so some of the kids just want chili, but then Luke and I want to pile on the sauerkraut, the avocado, the jalapeno, the cilantro, you know, or like maybe if you have something where you're adding like a fancy sauce you're making, just don't add the sauce. They might just want a tortilla, meat, cheese. That's
exactly.
Fine.
And that's what I've seen. My little guys will do nachos, you know, if we're doing tacos or something like that.
You have all the components there and then they build it with just the cheese, the meat.
It'll be okay.
Yeah, it really will.
Yeah.
It'll be okay. Okay, we have a few questions about canning. It's like probably a whole thing to jump into. And I know you have a lot of resources on your YouTube channel. Do you have a playlist for canning specifically?
I probably do. I do have. I'm trying to think. I did broth maybe in January. I want to go through and do more of my ground beef. I did ground beef a bit ago, but I'm out of ground beef now. And even like stew meat and things like that.
Yeah. Lots of questions about safety, things like that.
Go to the National Center of Food Preservation website. Like anything that source, I can. Yeah, exactly. Anything that I can, especially, you know, things for YouTube and such. I just go through there.
Okay.
Even like when I canned 380 pounds of tomatoes and did homemade sauce and did that adventure, I just used their directions for canning the sauce. Obviously, I did a bigger volume. Right. And I do have like the 45 quart All-American canner. And I have an Amish canner. Like I have a lot of canning equipment. But if you have, I started with 2 Presto canners. Well, 1 Presto canner. And then I went to the next. And then 2. Yeah. So I'm used to scaling to a big volume because if I'm doing it, you know, what's 5 quarts when I can do 56 quarts?
Yeah. We had several freezer meal specific questions like what's not like what shouldn't you freeze? How do you keep it delicious? How do you organize? And I was noticing with a lot of the things you said about your kids, they're all very used to going to the freezer, checking the inventory. I think if you're a freezer meal household, then people know to look there. Whereas I've gone through seasons where we don't do that at all. And so I'll freeze just some ground beef and then completely forget that it's in there. And so no matter how organized you are, if you're not used to going into the freezer, I think that's a problem. Right. But yeah, what are some of your tips?
They start looking glassy eyed whenever they can't go to the freezer and there's not 12 dozen varieties.
Where's the food, Mom?
Yeah, exactly. So they don't know. So again, even recently, like they had meals that they cooked, they did on the sheet pans, they paired it with freezer meals or used totally freezer meals, but they are used to having that base. Someone asked me something similar the other day, and my goodness, I just feel like so many things have worked out well, but I've stuck with the basics. Like I've done egg rolls, I've done twice baked potatoes. So many things just freeze well. And so even sour cream, like I have recipes where I'll use sour cream if I have it, because I'm all about obviously using what I have up in the refrigerator. So if it's sour cream or if it's Greek yogurt or if it's cottage cheese, like if I'm doing a baked spaghetti or lasagna or something, and all of those, even though they're dairy, not for the dairy-free questions, but they all bake well. You know, it looks all ice chippy and such, but even freezing sour cream you can use for cooking and in different recipes too. So
yeah, so there's not many that you stay away from.
Well, and nothing's going to be like crispy on the top. So like I have a taco bake casserole, and the layers will be shredded tacos. Well, sometimes I've run out of tacos. I'll switch that out with tortillas. But people worry that the layers are going to be mushy. Well, even if you bake it with crispy taco shells in the layers, it's going to be baked.
Right.
But you top it fresh, like with that particular recipe, I top it with crunchy. So that's where you get your crunchy.
Okay.
Like you have your layers, and then crunchy things I top before baking. So if there's different casseroles and things that would need a crunchy element, or just like I do freeze gravy, but for different like slow cooker dump and go type recipes, or the Instant Pot, like the last 30 minutes, you might need to add in your thickening agent or take some of it out, add in xanthan gum. I use xanthan gum a lot.
Okay.
And so those kind of things, like you'll have to know that with some freezer meals, even though it's assembled, you may have to add a topping or stir at the end, or like add a few other last minute quick ingredients.
Right. But even still, going to your freezer and then having that idea given to you.
Having 15 dinners. Yeah, you have 15 dinners there. I mean, how much can it save your life if over this next 6 weeks, you have 15 dinners in your freezer? It's really great.
And on your channel, I know you show how you package things, how you store it in the freezer. You share all of this kind of stuff. Are you also sharing time efficiency? Because I think when people are brand new to freezer cooking, for me personally, I made the wrong stuff because it took all day to get like stuff that I, maybe could have easily made. And I think you have more of a system down that people can go to your YouTube channel and see how it works in practice.
We try to, especially with the big batch freezer meal guides, have all the prep laid out. So because that's such a high volume of food, sometimes I will do the prep guide. Like, if I need to cook ground beef first or process 20 peppers or all those little components. And so I might do that the day before, and then the next day do meal assembly.
Okay.
Is one way to look at it. And then I've had many times though, if I start in the morning, it truly can be one day. And then especially like for slow cooker freezer meals, many times those can be assembled in the afternoon.
Wow. Yeah. So much great information, inspiration. For those who want to see how this works in practice, head over to Jamerrill Stewart over on YouTube, your website. Tell people where best to follow along.
My main YouTube channel it's just at Jamerrill Stewart.
Yeah. And we'll leave it linked down below. I'm sure many of you already know Jamerrill, but here's your reminder to be prepared, because just a little bit of preparedness can save you from, just expensive, unhealthy takeout, just all, in a crisis, being able to have the confident assurance that I have the food that's going to sustain my family taken care of. I think that's invaluable.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jamerrill. Appreciate you coming on. Thanks, as always, for listening to the Simple Farmhouse Life podcast. My husband Luke and I and our 8 kids work together side by side on our little homestead and use our blog, podcast, and YouTube channel to reach other homemakers, home cooks, and homesteaders with practical recipes in daily family life. For everyday sourdough recipes, make sure to check out our blog, farmhouseonboone.com. And to dig deeper, we do also offer a course called Simple Sourdough over at bit.ly/farmhouse sourdough course. That's all one word, bit.ly/farmhouse sourdough course. If you're looking to learn how we earn an income online, check out my YouTube course at bit.ly/farmhouse YouTube course, all one word.